My name is Claire, and for most of my life, I believed that being the responsible one meant I was doing the right thing. While my younger brother Jake chased dreams, dropped out of schools, and reinvented himself every 6 months, I became the steady one, the silent backbone, the problem solver. I moved to Europe in my late 20s for work. I climbed my way up in operations management, the kind of job no one talks about, but everything depends on. Long hours, cold airports, lonely hotel rooms, and every month part of my paycheck quietly made its way back home. At first, it was little things: groceries when Dad's pension ran low, Jake's broken laptop, Mom's emergency dental work. But over time, it became expected. I covered the property taxes, the insurance, Jake's car repairs, the family's internet bill. No one asked if I could afford it, they just sent the request. Sometimes they didn't even ask, they just assumed I would notice and take care of it. And I did, because I told myself, that's what good daughters do. Besides, I didn't have a family of my own. No husband, no kids, not even a pet, just a one-bedroom apartment in Munich, a half-dead plant I forgot to water, and a job that paid well enough to make guilt seem like duty. I convinced myself this was love, but it wasn't love. It was debt disguised as gratitude, and I was drowning in it, too proud to admit I couldn't breathe. The house in Seattle was the one thing that made me feel grounded. I bought it when I was 33, not because I wanted to live there, but because I wanted to give my parents security, something stable, something solid. It was in my name, but I let them live there like it was theirs. They promised to take care of it, to treat it with respect, to always ask before making any big decisions. And for years, I thought they did. Until one morning, I got a video call from Mom. She was smiling too wide. "Claire, you won't believe it. Jake is finally getting married." I blinked at the screen, still half asleep. "Wow, that's, fast." "Isn't it wonderful?" she beamed. "And guess what? We figured out the wedding costs. Everything's covered." I remember pausing. Something felt off. "That's great," I said slowly. "How'd you pay for it?" Her smile didn't fade. "Oh, honey, we sold the house." I thought I misheard her. "The house? What house?" "Your house, the one in Seattle. You haven't lived there in years. And it's still family, right? We used it for something beautiful, Jake's wedding. You'd be so proud of how it's all coming together." I felt everything in me drop, like someone had pulled the floor out from under me and expected me to clap. They sold it, without asking, without telling me, without even considering that maybe, just maybe, I might not be okay with it. I sat frozen, staring at her through the screen as if I were watching someone else's mother. "I have to go," I said, and I clicked end. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I just sat in the dark, the silence louder than any argument we could have had. This wasn't about the money, or even the house. It was about what it represented. They didn't just sell a property. They sold the last part of me that believed I was more than just a wallet to them. That night, I called Grace, my oldest friend, now a corporate lawyer in Boston. She answered on the second ring. "What's wrong?" she asked immediately. "They sold my house," I whispered. Grace didn't speak for a moment. Then calmly she said, "You mean the house in your name?" "No, the house in my LLC." Silence again. Then a sharp inhale. "They committed fraud." And just like that, the story shifted. This wasn't a family misunderstanding. This was a line crossed, and I wasn't going to let it go. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling like it had answers. But all I could see was the moment Mom said it, we sold the house. Like it was nothing. Like it wasn't mine. Like I hadn't spent years grinding through 16-hour days, skipping holidays, eating sad room service dinners in airport hotels, all to create something stable for them. It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the ease, the comfort with which they crossed the line and expected me to smile through it. By morning, my hands were shaking, not from anger, from clarity. For years, I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing, that sacrifice was love, that silence was strength. But now, I just felt stupid. At 7:13 a.m., I called Grace. She answered with her voice still raspy from sleep. "Claire, what's going on?" "They sold the house," I said. "Wait, what house?" "My house, Seattle, the one I bought, through Cedar Ridge Holdings." Grace sat up. I could hear the rustle of her sheets. "You mean your LLC?" "Yes." I heard her mutter a curse under her breath. "Did you sign anything?" "No, that's the thing. I didn't even know it happened until Mom told me after the fact. They forged my name, Grace. They actually faked my signature. She was quiet for a few seconds. Claire, this is serious. This isn't a family squabble. This is fraud, real prosecutable fraud. I know. And the LLC owns the property outright? Yes, no mortgage, fully paid off. Grace was already typing something. I could hear the rapid-fire clicking of her keyboard. Okay, she said, shifting into lawyer mode. Here's what we're going to do. First, we file for an emergency injunction with the county recorder's office to freeze any title transfer. Then we get a copy of the sales documents. I'll subpoena the notary and the buyers. We'll see who signed what, when, and how. Do you think they used my social security number again? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Grace paused. Again? I took a deep breath. This was the part I hadn't told anyone, not even her. A couple years ago, I noticed my credit score dipped for no reason. I found out they opened a credit line in my name, said it was temporary, said they were in a bind. I let it go. Grace exhaled sharply. Claire, that's identity theft. That's a felony. I know. And you never reported it? I didn't want to get them in trouble. I thought I was just being helpful. No, you were being conditioned, and now they think they can get away with anything. We spent the rest of the morning going through documents, emails, texts, transaction records, anything I had saved. Grace guided me step by step, what to download, what to flag, what to secure. As we worked, I kept thinking about Jake, the golden child, the baby of the family, the one who could fail upward and still land on a pile of praise. And now he was getting the dream wedding, with my house as the price tag. What hurt most wasn't that he benefited. It was that he didn't question it, didn't stop it, didn't care. And Mom, her voice kept echoing in my head. It's still family, right? As if that excused everything. As if blood meant ownership. As if my hard work was somehow community property. By the afternoon, we had enough to proceed. Grace had filed the hold. She was drafting the legal notice. The real estate deal would be frozen for review within 48 hours. Claire, she said before we hung up, you sure you want to do this? It's going to get ugly. I looked out the window of my Munich apartment. The sky was pale and cold, like me. I've spent a decade cleaning up their messes, I said. Maybe it's time they sit in it for once. Grace was quiet for a beat. Then softly she said, I'm proud of you. And I started to cry. Not because I was angry, not even because I was hurt, but because for the first time in years, I felt like someone was finally on my side. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because of an alarm, I just couldn't sleep. Something inside me had shifted, like a quiet engine finally starting to turn after years of idling. I brewed coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and opened my laptop. No distractions this time, no work emails, no guilt, just focus. If I was going to fight, I needed to understand the full picture. No more half-truths, no more assumptions. I wanted the numbers, the paper trail, the receipts. And what I found broke my heart. Over the past 6 years, I had transferred more than $312,000 to my family. It wasn't one big lump sum. It was drip by drip, rent here, hospital bill there, car payments, repairs, credit cards, emergencies that never ended. I had spreadsheets, wire confirmations, messages where Mom said, you're a lifesaver, or just this once. I had even paid for Jake's therapy once. He never knew. I used to feel proud of that, responsible, useful. Now I just felt used. Then I opened my credit reports, and there it was, a second home equity line, tied to the Seattle property, opened 2 years ago. Signed by me, except not by me. The signature was sloppy, a forgery. I traced the address used on the documents, Jake's fiance's old apartment. I sat back in my chair, stunned. Not only had they sold my house, but they had used it like a personal ATM behind my back, for years, all under the assumption that I'd never check, that I'd never push back, that I was too far away, too busy, too loyal. They were right. Until now. I sent everything to Grace. She called me immediately. Claire, this is worse than we thought. I know. They opened a line of credit with forged paperwork. That's multiple counts of fraud. If we dig deeper, we might even find conspiracy. My stomach turned. The word conspiracy felt like something out of a crime show, not my life. "These are your parents," Grace said carefully. "Are you ready for what comes next?" I didn't answer right away because, truthfully, I wasn't. I didn't want this to be real. I didn't want to imagine my mother sitting at a table, signing my name on a form. I didn't want to picture Jake pretending it was okay, or even worse, convincing himself I'd want this for him. But what I wanted didn't matter anymore. They made choices. I was just now seeing them for what they were. I stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out at the gray streets of Munich. Everything felt far away. My family, that house, the version of me that used to believe sacrifice would earn me love. And I said it out loud, just to hear it. They didn't just betray me. They trained me not to notice. That evening, I drafted a letter, not to them, to myself. I wrote, "You've spent so long holding everyone else up that you forgot you deserve to stand on your own. You are not a bad daughter for saying no. You are not selfish for protecting what you built. And you are not cruel for finally telling the truth." I closed the journal, took a breath, and pressed send on the final legal documents to Grace. We weren't just freezing the house sale now. We were pressing charges, full fraud investigation, no more gray areas. And for the first time, I didn't feel afraid. I felt something else, steady, like I was finally standing in my own life and not just managing someone else's. The days that followed felt quiet, too quiet. There were no calls from Mom, no sarcastic texts from Jake, not even one of Dad's occasional check-ins to ask about flight discounts or health insurance questions he never really understood. It was silence, cold and deliberate, the kind of silence people keep when they know they've been caught, but haven't decided whether to defend themselves or run. Grace was moving fast. She filed for a legal freeze on the house, and the county responded within 48 hours. The property was now officially under dispute. No transfer, no renovation, no wedding decorations, no use. It was locked, both legally and physically. The venue manager was notified. The buyers were contacted. And the title company? They panicked. Turns out, the documents had been rushed. The notary listed was a friend of Jake's fiancée, not registered, not certified. The signature ID check never happened. Everything, and I mean everything, pointed to an inside job built on arrogance and shortcuts. I didn't feel angry, not anymore. I felt something cleaner, something sharper, like a fog lifting after a long, slow storm. I stopped feeling like the daughter who gave too much and started feeling like a woman who was finally done being manipulated. Then came the messages. It started with a voicemail from Jake's fiancée. "Hey, Claire, there's been some confusion with the house. The wedding planner says she can't access the property. Your mom said it was fine, so I don't know what the issue is. We really just want this to be a special day for everyone. Could you help clear things up?" I deleted the message. Then the text came, from Mom. "Claire, I don't know what you've done, but the county sent a notice. This is all just a huge misunderstanding. Can we please talk like adults?" Then another. "You're blowing this out of proportion. Jake's wedding is one day. We're family every day." That line hit me harder than I expected, not because it was true, but because of how long I used to believe it. Family every day, except when it came to honesty, or respect, or ownership. I sat with that text for a while, let it sting, let it sit. Then I turned off my phone. The next morning, Grace forwarded me an email from the wedding planner. They had arrived at the property to begin setup and were met with a legal notice posted on the front gate. "This property is under legal dispute. Access restricted until further court review. Vendors were pulling out. Florists, lighting teams, caterers, even the drone videographer. The entire plan was unraveling. The wedding, this perfect high-budget fantasy they built on stolen ground, was falling apart. And yet, no one was calling to say sorry. No one was saying, we shouldn't have done this. Instead, they were panicking about appearances. the optics, the social media, the venue, the dress. They cared more about how it looked than what it meant. That night, I sat by the window of my apartment, legs curled up under a blanket, watching the rain streak across the glass. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. I didn't feel guilty, or cruel, or dramatic. I felt, still, like a woman standing in the eye of a storm, not because she created it, but because she finally stopped pretending it wasn't happening. Let them panic, let the cracks show, let the truth make its way to the surface. Because I wasn't going to save them this time. I was finally saving me. By Saturday morning, less than 24 hours before the wedding, it all began to unravel. My inbox was flooded. Missed calls, voicemails, panic. Jake's fiancé called me twice, then 3 times, then left a message that sounded like someone trying to stay polite while screaming through their teeth. "Claire, this is insane. The guests are flying in. The chairs were supposed to arrive this morning. We don't even know where to park. Can you please fix whatever you've done?" I didn't respond. Not because I wanted to be cruel, but because for the first time I was letting people experience the weight of their own decisions, without cushioning the fall for them. By Saturday evening, the full collapse was in motion. The county clerk had flagged the property as part of an ongoing legal dispute. Every vendor canceled. The tent company, the lighting crew, the live string quartet, all gone, most of them unpaid, some of them angry. One even emailed me directly. "We were told this was a family-owned venue. Now we're told it's under litigation. We're pulling out. Don't involve us in this mess." Too late. The mess was public now. That same night, I got a text from Grace. Reddit thread going viral. Someone leaked the story. And sure enough, there it was. Posted by someone anonymous, but clearly close to the situation. Bride's brother loses it and shuts down wedding after family sells his house behind his back. Close, but not quite. Still, the internet did what it always does. Dug deeper, found the county property records, screenshotted old Instagram posts from Jake's fiancé, gloating about our dream venue, gifted by my generous sister. Commenters were ruthless, some sympathetic, most stunned. Some shared their own stories, of betrayal, of inheritance wars, of family acting entitled to things they never earned. Apparently, it struck a nerve. By Sunday, the wedding day, everything had fallen apart. Guests showed up to locked gates, a few vendors arrived, unaware they'd been canceled, and stood outside with confused expressions and unused decor. Jake never called, not once. But I saw online through a mutual friend's post that the ceremony was called off. Not rescheduled, not relocated. Canceled. And 2 days later, I noticed something else. Jake's fiancée had quietly wiped their engagement photos from Instagram. Her relationship status changed to single. Her story? Gone. No announcements, no explanation. Just silence, the cold, digital kind. I'd be lying if I said I felt triumphant. This wasn't revenge, it wasn't satisfying, it was sad. Not because they didn't deserve it, but because it showed me, finally and clearly, how little they ever thought of me. They weren't ashamed of what they did. They were ashamed it didn't work, ashamed they got caught, ashamed the lie wasn't sustainable, and now they had to sit in the rubble. The house, my house, was still in legal limbo, but no one would be hosting a wedding there again. And me? I booked a flight to Seattle, not to see them, not to confront anyone. I just wanted to walk through that house one last time before I let it go properly. When I arrived, the street was quiet, familiar but distant. The lawn had gone slightly overgrown, the porch light was cracked. Inside, the furniture had been moved around, probably in anticipation of the big day. But now, everything felt like an abandoned set. I walked through the kitchen, trailing my fingers across the counter I once paid to have refinished. The place was emptier than I'd imagined, not just of things, but of meaning. This was the house I gave them, the security I believed they deserved. But standing there in silence, I realized it had never truly been home. Not for me. I left the keys on the counter, took one last look at the living room window where I used to imagine a Christmas tree someday, and walked out. No tears, no speech, no closure call, just the soft sound of the door clicking behind me. Because sometimes letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means finally choosing yourself. 3 weeks after the wedding that wasn't, I stood outside the courthouse in downtown Seattle. It was gray and drizzling, of course it was. The sky matched the moment, quiet, heavy, unsettled. I hadn't spoken to my parents since the fallout, Jake either. No apologies, no explanations, only silence, and a handful of emails from their attorney denying any wrongdoing. Grace met me at the steps. She looked sharp, composed, calm, like she carried certainty in her bag next to her laptop. "You ready?" she asked gently. I nodded, but in truth, I wasn't sure what ready meant anymore. The hearing wasn't long. Civil court doesn't come with drama. No gavel slams or shouting matches. Just paperwork, presentations, and a judge who's seen too many broken families to flinch. Grace laid it all out with surgical precision. Weight-forged documents. I plus Tejas unauthorized line of credit. I Black's false notarization. I Black 2 wire transfers. I Black's 2 text messages. I Black's Deepak abuse of my LLC and personal credit. She spoke like someone who knew I'd been gaslit into silence for years, and now finally I had a voice in the room that couldn't be ignored. The opposing attorney, a man who looked like he charged $400 an hour to protect toxic people, tried to downplay everything. He called it a family misunderstanding, suggested there had been implied consent, even said I had a history of generosity and that no financial harm was clearly intended. I didn't speak, but I looked directly at my parents from across the room. They wouldn't meet my eyes. Jake didn't show up. The judge asked a few quiet questions, then he leaned back, flipped through the papers again, and said flatly, "This is identity theft, real estate fraud, possibly financial elder abuse in reverse. Ms. Hartley," he looked at me, "you showed extraordinary patience and good documentation." And then the ruling came. Increase SFTK house sale was officially nullified. FDK house sale, all proceeds frozen pending financial repayment to my LLC. Increase SMTK parents were ordered to repay the credit line they had opened with interest. Increase SMT was fined for knowingly using falsified paperwork to support a fraudulent title transfer. Increase SMTK fine line for lots of alone rooms was 6 to get our sale. Financial restraining order was placed on all of them, barring them from using my name, credit, or legal entities in any way moving forward. No prison, no handcuffs, but it was on record now. Public, legal, undeniable. And for me, that was enough. Outside, Grace handed me a copy of the ruling. I held it in my hand like something fragile, like the first clean breath after being underwater too long. "How do you feel?" she asked. I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. I just smiled, then shook my head slowly. "Tired," I said finally. "But clear." She nodded. "That's the start of healing." That night, back at my hotel, I did something I hadn't done in a long time. I sat down with my journal and wrote. Not about them, not about court, not even about the past. I wrote about me. "You were never difficult. You were just trying to survive a family that made love conditional, and now you're allowed to rest. You're allowed to begin again, without guilt, without apology." I closed the journal, lit a candle by the window, and watched the rain turn into mist over the skyline. The house was no longer mine, but the story? That finally belonged to me. 6 months passed. The house was gone, officially sold, on my terms this time. No secrets, no signatures I didn't recognize, no silent sacrifices disguised as duty. I let it go, not out of spite, but because I was done letting old structures define who I was. The money sat untouched in a separate account, not because I didn't need it, but because for once I wasn't rushing to save anyone, not them, not even myself. I had learned something important through all of this. Sometimes healing doesn't come from fixing anything. It comes from letting things fall apart and realizing you're still standing afterward. I packed up my apartment in Munich with surprising ease. The memories I had built there were quiet. Long walks in the cold, tired flights home, coffee mugs left half full. It had been a place of survival, of function. But I wanted something different now. Something smaller, slower, softer. So I moved to New Zealand. Not because it was far, but because it felt untouched by my past. I rented a modest cottage near Queenstown. It had a crooked fence, a lemon tree that only blossomed on one side, and a fireplace that fought back every time I tried to light it. It wasn't sleek, or modern, or efficient, but it was real, and it was mine. Mornings were quiet. No alarms, no meetings, no crisis calls from family, just birdsong, a warm mug in my hands, and the gentle creak of wooden floorboards under my feet. For the first time in decades, I wasn't working toward anyone else's expectations. I wasn't solving. I wasn't managing. I wasn't being the good daughter. I was just Claire, and slowly I began to remember who that was. There were moments of grief, of course, not loud ones, not dramatic, but soft waves that would wash over me unexpectedly, like the time I walked past a father and daughter on the trail and the girl reached out to hold his hand, or when I saw a couple in a hardware store arguing playfully over paint colors, planning a future they'd build together. Those moments stung, not because I wanted what they had, but because I had spent so long believing I wasn't allowed to want anything, because that wanting was selfish, that boundaries were betrayal, that love meant making yourself small so others could breathe. But not anymore. Now I sat in those moments. Let them pass. Let them teach me something. I started working part-time at a small local bookstore, not because I needed the money, but because I liked the rhythm of it. Stacking titles, talking to strangers about the stories they loved. Getting lost in fiction, and realizing that somehow my life had become a story worth telling too. One afternoon, I took out the same journal I'd started the day after court. I flipped past the anger, the grief, the unraveling, past the days where I doubted everything, past the nights where silence felt heavier than words. And I wrote one final entry. You didn't lose your family. You lost the illusion that you owed them everything to keep the peace. And what you gained was your own peace. The kind that doesn't demand, the kind that doesn't punish, the kind that lets you wake up every day and choose joy without permission. I closed the journal, not with bitterness, with gratitude. The sun was setting behind the mountains when I stepped outside. The sky burned soft gold over the water, and the wind carried the scent of something wild and new. I had no plan beyond tomorrow, no big ambition, no one waiting on the other end of a phone to pull me back in. And that somehow felt like the truest freedom I'd ever known. Because this isn't the end of the story, it's just the first time. I get to write it myself.